Good morning, Richard.
Morning.
Now, to my lovely visitors to this podcast, I want to introduce one of my oldest and dearest friends, Richard Bellman, who is going to tell you a little bit about himself. I'm going to put him on the spot, but I will give you the heads up in that he is a phenomenally inspired human being, and it's my great privilege to actually interview him rather than him interviewing me, and to just ask him questions about how he's dealing with the realities of his life in a very dynamic and inspired way. So over to you, Richard, if you'd like to just tell us about your background, really, or what you do for a living. And
yeah, hi. Thanks for that intro. I was born in Africa, East Africa. Lived out there for 17 years. Haven't been there for a long time, but it is my kind of soul home. I'm a property developer. Actually, I'm a lawyer by birth. Spent 18 years in industry, but got tired of shuffling other people's papers. And I love design. I love doing interesting, different things. So about 20 years ago, I started up my own design business, development property. And that's what I do now. You're sitting in one of my creations, one of my homes, which is quite a large 24,000 square foot house. Yes.
That's not a goldfish tank, that's looking outside.
Yes, through one of the smaller windows. Catherine is very lovely, kind of agreed to look after it for a while and put her own stamp on it, which she's done very well. And yes, I live with my family just west of Winchester. We love the second. I got someone coming in, you're back. And yes, we live with my family in Winchester. We've lived here for about 6 years now. Love it. Used to live in London. Shall I go on to my condition?
Yes.
This is what it's all about. So about 4 years ago, I got diagnosed with motor neuron. I think it started off because I couldn't hold a tennis racket anymore with my right hand, and I went through all the usual tennis elbow and restrictions and stuff, and that wasn't working. So I went to a neurologist, and man with a white coat and a long title, and he basically gave me the kind of, you're dead look, and said I had 2 years to live. And I said, how sure was he? And he said, well, on the symptoms you have, he's never been wrong yet. And that was between 4 and 5 years ago. Yes, it was, I wouldn't say it's the start of my kind of belief in the emotional side of healing. I've had that before, as you know. But it certainly reaffirmed it, because I do think that the emotional side of healing is very strong. You can tell your body what to do, and what you do governs what's going to happen. I just refuse to accept what I was told. When I say accept, I mean I've got the condition. Yeah, fine, I accept that, but not the outcome, not the we can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it, here's a counsellor, bye. So with the help of some very good friends, including you, and some very good natural healers, I kind of kicked in on the personal healing side, and I have difficulty with my hand, and I have kind of slight walking issues. Well, barely you'd notice. But otherwise, I'm firing on all cylinders and thoroughly enjoying life.
Definitely firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, so I think it's down to three things, really. I mean, I think it's to do with that belief system I mentioned, about the belief system that you can actually tell your body what to do. You can, I mean, I have conversations with my neurons and tell them to look after the little guys who are not doing the right things, and tell them to get on with it and communicate and all that kind of stuff. And it's quite fun. I think movement is also another very, very important thing, to keep those neuron lines open, keep them used to doing what you normally do. Otherwise, if you do believe the men in white coats, you just simply get into a chair or kind of walk around as if you're half disabled, and you sort of get out of the habit of doing what you did, and that's a downward path. So you keep physically doing, within limits, what you've always done, deliberately and consciously, and just keeping everything open. And the third thing is to keep your vibrational frequency up as much as you can. Keep life light, keep it fun, and feed what makes life interesting. Yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Thank you. The reason why I really wanted to talk to you and interview you, although interview is too strong a word when we've been friends so long, is because the houses that you build are so full of unbelievable light and energy. I mean, for me, having been brought up by an artist and interior designer, it's like actually being in a painting, in a glorious painting that has light everywhere. And it's got wonderful windows everywhere, but also just straight through views into nature. And everything about your ethos is connected to energy and nature. So when you and I had our first chat about perhaps things going a little bit into the challenging arena, I'll put it like that, in your physical body, I remember asking you, because I thought I knew what you were going to be diagnosed with, and I remember asking you whether you were willing to, in a sense, go off-piste. So for anybody who doesn't ski, that's an expression where instead of sticking to the tram lines that the snowmobiles have created for the snowers, you go off-piste, which is a very adventurous thing to do, but you really have to know what you're doing. And I remember asking you whether you would entrust me to throw all the skills that I've got at this for you and with you. And you said yes, because when I was in clinical practice, I used to work with people with motor neuron MS, absolutely severe cancers, which in fact I still do, but it's obviously slightly different because I'm no longer in clinical practice. But there are so many ways in which you can outwit a diagnosis, because Western medicine has to put labels on things, and then they have to guess with the best of their experiences and expertise on a sort of prognosis. And yet my experience clinically is that even the worst diagnosis, you can shift it, because we are energy beings. And every single organism is emitting a frequency, and if we can keep on some kind of harmonious frequency, that is going to help. Whereas what you've just mentioned is, if you're given a diagnosis and you believe it, you're already building a molecular alternative to how your body used to work.
Mm.
So I think the privilege and fun for me of having our friendship, and also now supporting you with this phenomenal project, is that every day that I see you, we're always talking about energy. And I think I sent you this thing the other day about how the highest frequency that the scientists have been able to prove exists that comes from a human being is being authentic. And what I really respect and admire about you is that you are living alongside this Western diagnosis, and you've already gone beyond, beyond, beyond. And yet you're not, I can never say this word, you're not animating it. You're not, what's that word? Richard, you'll know.
Emanate.
What?
Emanating, is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I want. You don't come in to our meetings sick or disabled, or you don't come in as if you've got one of the nastiest diagnoses that anybody can have. And that all makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I just want to add this one thing, because this is the sting in the tail of doing really well. What happens often if people sort of go public in a way about how well they do with a diagnosis? We live in such a peculiarly sick society that people instantly will say, but Richard, then the diagnosis is wrong, you haven't got it. Or in my case, it was all the surgeries. I mean, what fascinates me is how few people ever sit with me and go, I'd really like to know how you manage to live with pain, or how you dissipate pain. Or, I mean, it's my career working with people who want to go further, but it fascinates me that as a society, we're much more problem orientated than solution orientated. So if you come across someone like yourself who has gone beyond what the person in the white coat said, and I've gone beyond, it's extraordinary how uninterested in some respects the world is. So I think what I love about the work that I do and the work that you do, and it's in different arenas, but it has similarities, is we are both completely solution orientated, which in itself, and that is the point of why I'm saying this, it's one of the biggest signs of wellness. So it's literally, if you have a disease and a label, if you want the opposite of it, it is actually to become solution orientated. So your whole focus, your whole rhythm, your whole vibrancy, everything is actually solution orientated. And that doesn't mean to say you have to be positive all the time.
No, I thoroughly agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
It's mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. And it's not, as you say, it's not denial. Or as I said earlier, not denial. The condition is there. It's just refusing to accept the limitations which Western medicine put on what they've just told you. And it's particularly galling for me, actually, because that's happening, must be on a daily basis everywhere. And people are being told by people they respect and admire and go along with that, their time's up. And if that happens, then I think 90% of people will accept it. And that's what happens. And I think that's a huge shame. It's a waste. And I agree with you that, and that's why I've beaten myself up a bit about this in terms of not going along to motor neuron disease sort of forums and get-togethers and kind of talk about it, because I'm reluctant to kind of just give it too much oxygen. I'm reluctant to kind of be with people who traditionally just talk about it all the time, and they live it and they are it, and I don't want that. And I'd love to share with them what I'm doing, and I'd love to kind of I wouldn't say help them, that sounds patronizing, kind of illustrate and be an example of what they can do as opposed to what they can't. But I'd prefer to do it in a way which doesn't involve the kickback, which is kind of being reminded constantly about what might be coming, what might not be coming, and letting that affect your frequency. So yeah, I mean, if I sense that it's the right time and the right people to do it, I'll talk about it openly. But I'm careful not to, because to everybody, and because as you say, everyone's they kind of put their own stuff on you, and then particularly you're labeled, and by in the same way as the man in the white coat did, and that's unfortunate. So it's, you know, in the positive sense, it's everything you said about you know, vibrational stuff and keeping it up and just enjoying what you have. It's brilliant. I mean, I shared what I was having with my family, fairly, you know, obviously, and particularly my son, who at the time was 13, and he was obviously devastated. But I wanted him to share what I was talking about and what I was doing, so he would sort of get into that thing as well, and he has. So, you know, we kind of share the journey, but he does it in a way which is as light as me, and particularly when I kind of do certain things, like I try and share a V sign out the window in a car or something, and I can't quite get the fingers up. My son's killing himself laughing. So it is about sharing that lightness and getting out there as much as you can, even to people who are not aware of what you've got. Yeah, and that's what the house is all about too.
I think what's I mean, this particular session is very much about you, but it's interesting that I'm, you know, working alongside you at the moment, and my spinal condition is triggering wastage in my body, and it's massive. I mean, it's sort of like a wildfire that is going off in me, and I'm so grateful that I have all the skills that I have, because I'm being told all sorts of things at the moment, and I just know, not with arrogance and not with stupidity and not with denial, that it's just rubbish. And the only reason why I think it's absolute rubbish is because I've had to learn to know my body so well, and I know that if I give what I'm being told my focus and my energy, I know that this wildfire, it's going to be like putting petrol on this wildfire. So even though I do have times when I'm frightened or I'm frustrated or I feel isolated in it, you know, what I've learned is, like, I have to just be still in that, let myself land in that humanity, the real humanity. And then as I land, I immediately get actually the opposite. I will go from being frightened to, you know, making a joke, or I will ring you and we'll laugh together, because we both have quite dark black humor, which really helps. So I go from feeling quite heavy to immediately back to lightness. And I think that's, you know, both you and I are privileged enough, and I think it is a privilege. I think we've worked for it. So I don't think it's luck, but I feel very humbled by both of us actually knowing now how to not give our power away. We've got our hands on the steering wheel, and we are going to have a ball until we're no longer in this jacket. And then the other thing I'm always repeating on these podcasts is we are not our bodies. We're our spirit in our body. And, Sophie Savage, who wrote The Cancerous Bone, became very famous before she died because she was living with bone, brain, lymph, and lung cancer, and should have gone within months, and she lived for 7 years. One of her big, wonderful phrases was, I have cancer, cancer does not have me. And I have wastage, but wastage doesn't have me. You have motor neuron, but it doesn't have you. Now, if you understand that one little sentence of whatever it is you've got, it could even be, I have financial issues, but the financial issues don't have me. You change your energy completely. You're in charge. You're no longer a victim of whatever it is. And that's very much what yours and my attitude is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that you are particularly good at it.
Thank you.
No, you're quite remarkable. I mean, to put it another way, what you just said, we get back what we put out. Or it's another corollary of what you just said. And you're the living entity of that, insofar as look at what you're wearing, bright red, and bright colors, and your behavior and outgoing is it matches that most of the time, and it just that's what you get back, and you do that so well, and if people just keyed into that, I think it would radically change what they get back and their environment around them.
And I think, I want to, you're going to have to maybe help me out here, Richard, but I think on Saturday we've got various people that are clearing, wonderful people that are clearing the gutters, literally the gutters on this property. And one of the things I'm always talking about is, because I'm a grief recovery specialist as well, is how important it is to clear the guttering within ourselves, because you can't, you don't have to, in some senses, there's this lovely expression, fake it to make it, but you can't fake it when your gutters are absolutely clobbered. Someone I was working with recently, they just hated drinking water. And as a result, they were only used to going to the loo once a week. And I cajoled them. I'm going to put it that way. I encouraged them to start drinking water, to drink 1.5 litres of water, and I invited them to do it slowly. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I've just seen them, and their skin is looking fresh. They go to the loo every single day. And one of the largest gutters that we have in our system is from our mouth all the way down to in between our legs. And our gutters need clearing. And people will understand that analogy. But what people don't understand is when you have a diagnosis, very often one element of it is that your gutters emotionally and spiritually have got stuck. So, what I've admired and watched you be willing to do, and it's particularly amazing because, unfortunately, a lot of men are not encouraged to be emotional. And then I think the gutters emotionally get even fuller. And I think that's why, unfortunately, there's a very high suicide rate amongst men. And, only the other day, I was talking to someone who had found their partner who, thank God, hadn't succeeded in topping himself. So I think there's just huge burdens of people not understanding you can't. I mean, please don't anybody listen to this thinking that we think it's easy to become light and to get to a so-called higher frequency. Because if your gutters are chock-a-block full of unresolved grief or unresolved trauma or unresolved not being able to drink water, physically, mentally, spiritually, you've got too many leaves in your gutters, or you've got literally too much, excuse the expression, shit backing up. Now, you have to have that cleared. Now, the great thing that I want to share, because you and I are both living evidence of that, is that it doesn't have to be, and I'm not in any way being disparaging about any other systems out there, and in fact, I'm not even going to mention them, but if you get a good practitioner who understands energy, you can get the support and love to clear your gutters. And it actually can be as simple as me cajoling someone 2 weeks ago. I probably terrified them, actually, because I told them the consequences of not drinking, but they were able to handle it. And literally just 2 weeks later, by drinking water, they physically, mentally, spiritually, I mean, they bounced into the room that I was in the other day. Bounced, literally. Their sense of vitality was engaged. And you and I have one thing in common in particular. We are engaging with our life force every single day. So no matter what your diagnosis or prognosis is, the first thing you have to be willing to do is engage with your life force. And what does that mean to you?
I bet they were pleased at you for having to go to the toilet more than once a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People, I mean, we don't think we're living in such a complicated way nowadays that we don't go back to the basics. And sometimes going back to the basics is drinking water or having somebody listen to you while you cry.
Yeah.
Most of us, when we hear bad news, we do not lean forward and say, please tell me about it.
Yeah.
Please tell me, how did they die? I mean, it's a joke, but it's not a joke. When people get a cancer diagnosis, they start trying to talk about it. People go, oh, yes, my Aunt Matilda died of exactly the same cancer. And this poor person is going, I don't want to die of this. So we're not good at going, let's say I say I've got a diagnosis of cancer, whatever it is. We're not good at going, I'm really sorry, would you like to talk to him about it? How did it happen? We sort of instantly go like that. And we're not as a Western society, even though we've progressed enormously, we've not progressed with our communication skills in some respect. And we really genuinely do not know how to live constructively. Forget being manically positive. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, well, it's the kind of extension of empathy. Yeah, which is more than we should be doing. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And that's part of, isn't it? I mean, you and I talk about this a lot. It's more than what you put out. It's, if you can keep practicing the skill of empathy and compassion and listening and not interrupting, your life force is improved upon. Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
And I think the worst thing about having a diagnosis is that your sense of value and purpose in life can just be shattered. And then it's too easy to close in. Whereas what I see you do every day is you just do the opposite. You're out there
Mm.
I mentioned to someone the other day about your next birthday, and they went, "What do you mean?" No, he's 20 years younger than that.
Yes, thank you.
You paid me to say that, haven't you?
But photographs lie, by the way. I don't look this. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, good words. Good words. Yeah.
It's really important to know what is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what you do very well. That's what you do very well. And hope you carry on doing it, because you are the living embodiment of you are.
Craziness,
Yeah, that too.
loopiness.
Yes. Faking it to me. Actually, you're so good at faking, it doesn't really look like faking. So
Don't tell me I'm authentic, then I'm getting to this enlightened frequency. No, if anyone knows me well enough, they'll know I'm being very facetious. Oh, I'll have you know that your plants outside need watering. That's what that was for.
right.
Anyway, Richard, thank you so much for just telling us a little bit, because I think it really is important that people know how possible it is to go beyond a prognosis.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And I wish the message actually could be got out there more, because the number of people I do come across who they've got conditions, and whether it's cancer, tumors, whatever you like, and they are at quite an early stage, and you start talking to them about the kind of emotional side and the belief side and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of them just do shut off, because it's not what they've been taught to believe by Western medicine. They've got to have a drug for it. They've got to have a pill for it. You've got to have an operation or an intervention for it. And frankly, once you've had all that, your time's up anyway. Yeah, and that's a big shame. That's a huge shame, because as you say, it doesn't take much. It wouldn't take much actually for Western medicine to actually alter it, just even ever so slightly. And keep on that Western stuff, fine, but just acknowledge and bring in the fact that there are alternatives.
Well, yeah. I mean, the joke about the so-called alternatives is that medicine, in all its glorious forms, totally associated with the natural kingdom and Mother Earth, have been around for over 7,000 years. So
they're not the alternatives. They're the mainstream.
It's extraordinary. You can't, science mustn't be allowed to chop up the human being as if it's just a medical condition.
Yeah.
And real science. So Candice Pert has written the most wonderful, she's an extraordinary female scientist, and she wrote a book called The Molecules of Emotion. And, the exciting world that you and I choose to live in, and I think it is one of choice, is to open ourselves up to all the scientists, Western medical practitioners, so-called alternative practitioners, philosophers, people of faith, people like Bruce Lipton, Marianne Williamson, Caroline Meese. There are exceptional human beings all over the world, and everybody is saying the same thing, which is basically there is more to our human condition than we are led to believe. And the thing I just want to end with, and I really know that you'll back me up about this, I don't want anybody listening to this who might have motor neurone or might have severe wastage or a wastage condition. I don't want them to think that we're saying it's easy, or that they're failing because you don't feel jokey and light about it. Please don't take from this that that's what we're saying. What we are both united in is saying that it is possible, no matter what the diagnosis is, to have your hands back on your steering wheel, your hub of your life force. And you can, with support, actually change the quality of your days, even if you are deteriorating.
Yeah.
That's all we're sharing. We're not on any level attempting to suggest, if you're sitting listening to this right now, that you're failing because you feel miserable or because you've deteriorated. Please, please do not think that. All we are doing is sharing the possibility of looking at this differently. That's all. And I think that people shut down because they are not used to they're not used to being encouraged to care enough about themselves to just wonder whether there's an alternative way of handling something.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly endorse that. Absolutely endorse. Yeah, quite right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing this time with me. And don't go anywhere because I need to ask you something about the house, but I'm going to stop the recording. And many, many thanks, Richard.
Well, thank you too, Catherine. Lots of love.